Imagine looking at someone you love, your parent, your partner, your closest friend, and knowing exactly who they are. You recognize their face, you recognize their voice, everything looks normal. But something feels wrong, not different, not unfamiliar, just not real. And then the thought appears. This isn't them. They look the same, they sound the same, but somehow you're convinced they've been replaced. This is called Capgras syndrome. A rare condition where the brain can recognize a face, but loses the emotional connection to it. So instead of feeling familiar, it feels wrong. And the brain tries to explain that feeling the only way it can, by creating a belief that the person you love has been replaced by an identical imposter. The face is correct, the voice is correct, the memories are still there, but the feeling is gone. And without that feeling, the brain refuses to believe it's the same person. It usually begins in warm fresh water. A lake, a pool, nothing seems dangerous, and nothing feels wrong, except for one small detail. The water goes up the nose, and somehow, that's all it takes. Because instead of going to the lungs, something takes a different path. A microscopic organism called Naegleria fowleri. But it doesn't enter the blood, it goes straight to the brain, using a nerve meant for smell, as if it knows the way, and once it's there, it starts destroying brain tissue. At first, it feels simple, headache, fever, but very quickly. Confusion, hallucinations, loss of control. This condition is called primary amoebic meningoencephalitis. And even though doctors know how it enters, they still can't fully explain why some people exposed to the same water never get infected at all, while others do. It usually starts with something small, a bump, a bruise, maybe even a simple fall. But instead of healing, the body responds in a completely different way. It begins to build bone in places where bone should never exist. Muscles slowly harden, tendons lose their flexibility, and movement becomes more and more restricted, almost like the body is locking itself. This condition is called Fibrodysplasia, ossificans progressiva. And the strangest part is, this process can be triggered by the smallest injuries, even something like an injection, because deep inside there's a tiny genetic mistake. A mutation in a gene called ACVR1, which keeps sending the wrong signal, telling the body to form bone even when it shouldn't. So instead of repairing tissue, the body replaces it with bone. Imagine waking up and suddenly speaking your own language with a completely different accent. Not a new language, not broken speech, just different. This is foreign accent syndrome. It usually happens after a stroke, but instead of losing the ability to speak or struggling to find words, something much stranger happens. The brain rewires the way speech comes out. Small changes in timing, subtle shifts in pronunciation, and suddenly the same voice sounds completely different, almost like a foreign accent. The strange part is, nothing else is affected. They understand everything. They speak fluently. There's no confusion, no missing words, just a different sound. And here's the mystery. They never learned that accent. They've never practiced it, never lived around it, and yet, somehow, their brain created it. Imagine touching something sharp, a pin, a knife. Your body reacts instantly. You pull your hand away, your face tightens, because pain means danger. Now imagine something different. You feel the same stimulus. The same signal travels through your nerves, reaches your brain, you recognize it. You can even say, this is pain, but something is missing. There's no discomfort, no urgency, no need to escape. You don't pull away. You might even smile. This is pain asymbolia. A rare neurological condition where pain is perceived, but not felt as unpleasant. The sensory pathway is intact, but the emotional response is gone. And without it, pain loses its meaning. No urgency, no warning, no need to stop. What should feel dangerous feels neutral, and without that feeling, the body doesn't protect itself. It usually happens right before sleep. Everything is quiet. Your eyes are closing, your body is finally still. And then, a sudden sound, a loud bang, a crash, an explosion. Inside your head, not outside, not in the room. Inside, you wake up instantly, heart racing, confused, looking around. But there's nothing there, no noise, no movement, just silence. This is called exploding head syndrome, a rare sleep condition where the brain misfires as you fall asleep, creating a sound that isn't real, but feels completely real. And the strangest part, it doesn't hurt, it just leaves you lying there, awake, waiting for it to happen again. It usually starts after damage, deep in the brain. The temporal lobes, areas tied to memory, emotion, instinct, especially the amygdala and the hippocampus. At first, the person seems okay. They can talk, they can move, they understand everything around them, but then their behavior begins to change, subtly at first. They start touching everything, objects, people, anything in sight, not because they need to, just because something is pulling their attention toward it. Then it becomes harder to ignore. They pick things up and put them in their mouth, not food, anything, as if the brain is trying to understand the world the wrong way. Hunger changes too. It's no longer about eating when you're hungry. It becomes constant, uncontrolled. And then there's something even more unsettling. Fear fades away. Things that should trigger a reaction, danger, threat, risk, don't feel the same anymore. The person becomes unusually calm, almost indifferent. At the same time, boundaries start to disappear. Behavior becomes inappropriate, sometimes even sexual, without awareness, without restraint, and recognition begins to slip. Familiar faces, objects they've known for years, suddenly feel unfamiliar, as if they're seeing them for the first time. This is Klüver-Bucy syndrome, a rare condition that happens when both temporal lobes are affected. It can appear after things like severe head injury, stroke, or infections like herpes simplex encephalitis. There's no single treatment. Most of the time, doctors try to control the symptoms, calm the behavior, reduce the impulses. But the hardest part isn't what the person loses, it's what replaces it. The instincts that once guided them, what to fear, what to avoid, how to behave, are no longer there. And without those instincts, the world doesn't feel dangerous, even when it is. It usually begins with a problem doctors are trying to fix. Severe seizures, uncontrollable, so they decide to operate, removing a small part of the brain to make them stop. The surgery works. The seizures improve, everything seems better, but then something strange happens. He can still talk, still think, still understand everything around him. You could sit with him, have a full conversation, and nothing would feel wrong. Except for one small detail. A few minutes later, he won't remember you were ever there. His name was Molaison. And after the surgery, his brain lost the ability to create new memories. Not partially, not sometimes, completely. Every new moment, every face, every conversation disappears almost as soon as it happens, as if the present never becomes the past, because the part of the brain responsible for forming new memories, the hippocampus, was removed, and without it, experience can still happen, but it can't be stored. This condition is called Anterograde amnesia, and his case changed everything we thought we knew about memory. Because even today, there's one question we still can't fully answer. Why can the brain hold on to a lifetime of memories, yet completely fail to create a single new one?